I want to go to my guests. We're joined with Margaret Kimberley. She is senior columnist and editor for Black Agenda Report, author of Presidential, Black America, and the Presidents. How you doing this morning? You doing okay?
I had a connection problem. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. You sound perfectly fine. I saw I didn't bring you on. I saw that there was mic and thing issues. No issue at all. I can hear you perfectly fine.
Great.
I got to ask you, Trump has been in office for about, 2-3 weeks? What is your take so far?
Well, it's now 5 weeks, but it feels like a year. I feel like he's been president so much longer. But anyway,
He has been very active, to put it mildly.
It's very, Trump can be his own worst enemy. I feel as though this, entangling himself with Elon Musk, he won the popular vote. He has control of both houses of Congress. He could move his agenda. The president has a lot of leeway with foreign policy, so he can begin normalizing relations with Russia, which I think is a very good thing.
Yeah.
But this Musk, I think, ultimately is going to be a distraction. Musk is hurting too many people, and just to be blunt, too many white people, too many Trump supporters, people who did not think that by voting for Trump, they'd have to. I mean, it's so ridiculous that people have to send Elon Musk an email telling them what they did. There are 2 million federal workers. I mean, is somebody really going to read 2 million emails? It's just absurd. It's just stupid. Their goal is to deconstruct the government, to create something that most people do not want, do not see any need for. And for now, Republicans are sticking with him, but I don't think that's going to be the case for too much longer. I think he's hurting himself with his own voters. So while he has an opportunity to, for example, to end the U.S. support for the war in Ukraine, which I think is a good thing. It's not for the same reasons I want it. His goal is to get at China, so they want to make nice with Russia, the old Henry Kissinger move of being friends with one or the other and keep the other off balance.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe he's hurting himself. So it's interesting to see all the lawsuits. He'll win some, he'll lose some. Republicans, I think, may start to break. The thing that's works best for him is that the Democrats are just so cowardly and so incompetent by design, because they depend on their donors. They don't feel a need to do what their people want. That's why Hakeem Jeffries says, well, we don't have any leverage, because he's not thinking about what the people want. They run everything. What did he say? It's their government. I mean, really? He gave the game away with those silly comments. So that's Democrats are Trump's ace in the hole. But this Elon Musk thing is not going to go on forever. And I think he's only hurting himself, which in a way I don't mind. And if this means the end of the Democratic Party, the start of the beginning of the end of the Democrats, I won't be sad.
So, okay. From my point of view, when Republicans are elected, one of the first things they're going to do is go after government. I assume it when they win. Does the American public see it that way? Meaning, is it possible that they put these guys in because from their point of view, there needs to be a reset? Or from their point of view, meaning, are they accepting these cuts that Elon Musk and Donald Trump is putting through?
No, they're not accepting those. It's a funny thing. I'm not sure what people mean when they rail against big government. How you have a country of 330 million people. How do you not have a big government?
Right.
But people want somebody else to be hurt. They worry about somebody else cheating on public assistance or something else, something that has nothing to do with them. But this Doge Elon Musk
this
thing,
is hurting them, right?
It's hurting everybody, and it doesn't make sense to people. So if Trump had a budget bill, just did the normal thing and tried to pass a budget bill, which by the way, Obama did, there has been austerity in place to varying degrees ever since Reagan. So he could do basically what other presidents have done without much pushback if he just did what most presidents did, which is to pass a budget bill. He can have another tax cut for rich people. He could do all of those things, but he's allowed himself, being who he is, he's allowed himself to be distracted and possibly to harm his own agenda.
Can we talk about Mayor Adams for a bit? I when I was talking to Ted Raw lives in New York, and I pointed out to Ted Raw, it seems that what Mayor Adams got for the avoiding criminal prosecution was to give in on the issue of immigration. And I watch, I believe Holman is his name, sit there with Adams and effectively Bigfoot, the mayor, on live air. I think they were on Fox on the issue of immigration, where Holman said something like, yeah, and if he doesn't do it, I'm going to be right behind him, making sure. Please.
Up his butt. I mean, they sat there on Fox and Friends. Eric Adams is not going to probably not go to jail. Now, Trump interceded, told the prosecutors to drop the case. To their credit, these prosecutors said, no, we are not going to just drop this case. And I think 6 or 7 of them actually resigned. Yep. These are hardcore conservatives, Federalist Society, the whole nine. And they refused to go along. Now, the judge last week held a hearing, and he says he's going to deliberate some more. He's going to get some expert advice from others. So the case has not been dropped. So it's possible Adams could still go on trial.
Interesting.
So it's not clear yet what's going to happen. The judge was not moved, to his credit, that he didn't just say, I'm going to drop this case because this Bove guy, is it Bove? I'm not sure how to, B-O-V-E, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, is telling U.S. attorneys to drop cases because Donald Trump wants him to. And this is a big mess for us here in New York City. We, in effect, don't have a mayor. We have a mayor who's limping along, politically damaged. 4 deputy mayors resigned last week in protest.
Really?
Yes, 4 deputy mayors. I believe there's a total of 8, but half the deputy mayors have quit. People are pressuring Governor Hochul to remove him. She has the power to do so. So we have, his term ends this year, I believe December 31st, and the new mayor will take office on New Year's Day. But he can't run again. He was toying with the idea of running as a Republican. Apparently, he was once registered as a Republican. So he was making those moves. But it's unclear what's going to happen. If the governor removes him, then the public advocate, that's a citywide position, will be the acting mayor, and there'll have to be a special election. The other issue is Andrew Cuomo, waiting in the wings, the former governor who had to quit because of accusations of impropriety. He's lurking around. He has a lot of rich friends. He could raise enough money to be mayor. A lot of people don't want him. There are moves to encourage the city council president to run to try to block Cuomo. So it will be interesting to see what happens. But Adams is crooked. The biggest charge against him was fraud in campaign donations. Right. New York City has a very generous match. I believe sometimes it's 8-1. If you give $10 to a candidate, they get $80. So Adams created straw donors to inflate his campaign war chest. He ended up raising some $10 million, but a lot of that's fraudulent. So that's a theft of public funds. Others in his administration have quit for other impropriety. It's a mess. It's of a mayor who he harps on. Even though he's Black, he's a conservative. You know, he really worked hard to get the New York Post's endorsement when he first ran, and he did get it. So he's always talking about crime. Even if crime goes down, he's going on and on about crime. There's no indication of any competence. No indication that he's really in touch with the people. He won because it was a very low turnout. Yeah, basically that's how he got in. So now he's wounded, politically wounded, not taken seriously. So we will see. Of course, he still has the powers of the mayoralty, the power to, New York City's budget. year begins July 1st. He can still negotiate with the city council about the budget and other things, but he really does not have any authority as such. Even people who voted for him have now turned against him. So it's really a huge mess made worse by Donald Trump. He was indicted by a federal grand jury, and that means he ought to stand trial. So,
yeah, I've been fascinated by what has been taking place in New York with Adams. And now he seems like a captured animal, not just a wounded one. Yeah, I think he made the trade. I'll give you what you need for immigration. Get me out of this legal quagmire. And that interview on Fox, I've never seen anything like
oh my God, it was, well, I don't like Eric Adams. So anybody else, if I saw them humiliated that way, I'd have some sympathy for them, but I don't, because Adams is a crook. He kissed up to Donald Trump to get out of trouble, and the price he had to pay was to have Tom Homan talk about being up his butt. Literally, that's for the man's words. So we shall. And as far as immigration, New York is a sanctuary city. But can I briefly talk about what sanctuary city does and does not mean?
Please. I mean, because I think a lot of people have this idea that a sanctuary city would defend what they consider to be legal acts, even at the expense of its own population. I mean, that was the way that Adams talked about it when he was in that tiff with Joe Biden.
Means, and it goes back to the days of Ed Koch. This is like for some back to the 80s. Sanctuary just means that the city will not use its resources to deport people. It does not keep ICE from operating in New York. There's an immigration jail in Manhattan. People get deported from New York all the time. That's all it means. The city will not help deport. It doesn't keep ICE from operating in New York. And as I said, people get deported from New York. But people have, especially with the huge surge in these asylum seekers over the last couple of years, people think that they're getting things because of sanctuary cities. They're getting things because of New York City's laws. For example, New York City, because of a court order going back some 40 years, you have a right to seek shelter. Anybody, if today I said I have no place to go, I go to an intake center, the city has to find me a bed. That's the city rule for everybody. Now, you can argue that it shouldn't be for someone who just got here from some other country. I suppose you could, but it's not because of sanctuary cities or seeking public assistance. You can ask for public assistance, and generally it's not thousands of people from all over the world. So that's what sanctuary city does and does not mean. Sanctuary city policies don't keep ICE from operating, but aside, these asylum seekers are here legally. They can't, people keep calling them illegal. I don't like calling any person illegal anyway, but they are here legally if they are allowed to enter the country and then make a claim for asylum. But it was a crisis that was mishandled by Biden. I think it's one of the reasons Kamala Harris lost. She was supposed to be in charge of the border or something.
Yeah.
And was thousands of people coming in, and people did not like it for a variety of reasons. So now Adams is going to let the NYPD work with ICE. He said that ICE can operate on Rikers Island, the city's largest jail. He's supposed to close Rikers Island. That's one of many things that he has not done. He was supposed to do, but so Adams staying out of jail depends on him doing whatever the Trump administration asks him to.
Yes. Can we go to Joy-Ann Reid? Joy-Ann Reid has been fired from MSNBC. This is complicated for me because I also got fired from my own radio job, basically doing media. She has been particularly egregious on air. I'm going to play this clip just to give the audience a taste of what you see on a Joy-Ann Reid show. It is intense. It is often over the top. She is one of these Trump and Russia people. It is astonishing to me that this woman has a show, but is what it is, what it is. This is Reid going after Trump during the election, effectively saying, these people are fascists, just like Hitler. This is about freedom and liberty versus tyranny. She went all in on this clip.
We begin our final sprint, having arrived at that point in the election season where basically We on this side of the TV screen have said all we can. We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today, that suppresses the rights of women and minorities, uses the military to execute the whims of a strongman dictator, and controls and suppresses the press, education, the arts, rewrites history to suit a favored and dominant racial class, and foments extravagant corruption in order to enrich the dictator and his friends.
That is the opposite of what Putin has done. I'm sorry, I got to point that out. And on top of pointing that out, Putin won his election by like 80%. Orban won his election. Clearly, these were elections. These were actual elections. Comparing Trump to Hitler seems outrageous.
Well, and how do you lump in Maduro with Hitler? I mean,
Yes.
This is just absurd. This is just stupid. The U.S. doesn't like left-wing governments in Latin America, and so they have targeted the Maduro government elected by the people more than once, attacked him with sanctions. Now you have, Joy Reid lumping him in with Hitler and Mussolini.
Hitler, right?
That's just stupid. I've been to Venezuela. It's not a dictatorship. But I'm reminded of people in talking about this on social media. I've been reminded of the many crazy things she has said.
Yes.
Do you remember she had, being a good MSDNC host and attacking Bernie Sanders, do you remember she had this body language expert who was observing Bernie Sanders and said you could tell he was a liar based on his mannerism? I mean, it was just, it was outrageous. And I remember her saying, she was full on with Russiagate, and she would make crazy statements. I remember she said about Trump, his wives were Eastern European. And now the thing that's so stupid is, yes, his first wife, Ivana Trump, was Czechoslovakian, but the Czechs hate the Russians. The Czechs hated the Soviet Union, hated Russia, still do. And then she said that Melania was from Soviet Yugoslavia. She's from Slovenia, which is one of the part of the former Yugoslavia, but Yugoslavia was independent of the Soviet Union. She didn't know what she was talking about. So you see this, and MSNBC is Fox News for Democrats.
Yes.
It's not any better. It's the same thing. It's not real news. I've been in a captive audience and I've had to watch it because I was with someone else who was watching it. It's terrible. It doesn't give real news. It doesn't give analysis. It just tells you, and their ratings are in the tank.
Yeah.
So most people don't even want to watch it.
Well, that's why she got fired. I mean, it's not just her, Rachel Maddow, Lawrence. Oh, I forget his name.
O'Donnell.
Lawrence O'Donnell. I mean, these guys, I remember during the Bush administration, I used to love Rachel Maddow. And then when I think Obama got in, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, he is continuing the wars, but they don't care anymore. It was that breaking where I realized, oh, they're doing the same thing as Fox News. But it took me a while, right? Like if you were in 2000, let's say 2007, and these guys are doing show after show after show about being against the war that George Bush is in. Bush is a dictator. Bush is doing this. Bush is doing that. And I'm like, hey, these guys are right. Bush is horrible. And then Obama gets in. I'm like, wait a minute, Obama's horrible too. And they're like, no, really. He's love and light. He's the greatest thing ever to walk the face of the earth. I'm like, okay, something is wrong. Like my take on this, something is wrong.
Absolutely. It's a Democrats channel. And so they don't, there's no critique of the Democrats. They don't even have people. I mean, the Sunday morning talk shows are even better. They have a better guests. They have some degree of debate. I mean, MSNBC is just horrible. And they could just take it off for all I care. If they want to have a real news show, they could do far better. So, people are saying because, Trump has something to do with it because she was criticizing Trump, but they all criticize Trump on MSNBC.
Yeah, the entire
I don't
channel.
know. I don't know why they made these changes. I don't really care. People are saying we should defend her because she's a black person. No, she's terrible. She's a hack. Um, then
So,
remember she got in trouble because she had made some homophobic statements,
she said they
and
were time traveling hackers that hacked her account.
yes, yes,
Um, and she put out all these horrible statements about
I know.
gay people. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So anyway, she managed to survive that. Um, but she's not a good journalist. There's no journalism on MSNBC. None of them are
No.
real journalists. She does have a small loyal following. As I've said, their ratings are completely in the tank. All of their followings are loyal. I think they want to make room for Jen Psaki, who was
Do you? But just like his show
Biden's.
sucks.
Oh, well, that doesn't, she's no different from anybody else on MSNBC. They'll never get rid of Al Sharpton because he has, what a weasel, what a scoundrel. He has gained this reputation as representing black people, as representing black progressives or something. So
Right.
being the scoundrel that he is, they'll never take him off. He has a job for life if he wants it. But I think they want to put Jen Psaki in. I just remember her from Bush. Do you remember she thought of Putin's price hike? Remember that?
Yep. Yep.
After
I distinctly remember
after
just like you.
the
Yep.
Biden, they thought they were going to have regime change in Russia or destroy the government if they sanctioned Russian oil. All they did was raise oil and gas prices for everybody in the U.S. Anyway, they said it was Putin's price hike. That was one of her big things.
I
And
distinctly remember Jen Psaki coming out, and this was when she was press secretary. This was before she moved to
mhm.
MSNBC. And she said, defense of our values is not without cost. I was fascinated by that statement because it's so honest. Because what she's effectively saying is, look, man, we passed these sanctions and we have to take the hit for the sanctions that we pass. We are defending our values by doing this. And it's like, okay, so that's an acknowledgement that the prices went up as a direct result
Yes,
of
yes,
your
and hurt
action.
ordinary people, which
Yeah.
ended up with Kamala Harris losing. Do you remember also there was some cockamamie scheme to get influencers on TikTok and say bad things about Russia?
They were giving them
Those,
money. They were giving
yes,
influencers money, even during the election. That was one of the other things with Kamala Harris. You spoke about Al Sharpton. Sharpton, I believe it was Sharpton. Also, Roland
yes,
Martin, both of them ended up
yes.
getting nearly, I think Sharpton got like $500,000. I think Roland
Uh-huh.
Martin got like 200,000, something like that, for Kamala Harris to come on their show. And this is in addition to other influencers who were Democratic influencers who did not own up to the fact that they were getting money from the Democratic
Hmm.
Party, was getting money for the Democratic Party to do
Right,
Democratic talking points.
right.
Harris had paid millions for this. Millions.
Yeah, which is, I still laugh. I can't, the NAACP Image Awards, they gave her some award. I'm like, for being a loser, for being $1 billion loser? Really? It's like a participation trophy. I mean, it was so stupid. But at any rate, that's a
What,
whole other thing.
why do you think MSNBC, like, I've asked people this, and it's about the DEI thing. And I remember it was an article, I believe, in Politico that said Democrats lost the culture war because of DEI policies. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't know if Democrats lost the culture war. I think Democrats lost because they don't do enough for people. That's why. And people stayed home. And I think it's something like 6 million people voted for Biden but wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
That's the reason. Um, the culture war stuff, I think there's the split of some, I mean, and the culture wars, most people support abortion rights. As far as trans issues, I don't know. Think people have a variety of issues with it, but I don't think most people are with Trump and say that people shouldn't be allowed to refer to themselves as trans.
Right.
I don't think most people care what you put on your passport. It's your, and I thought conservatives
Agreed.
were all about freedom anyway, but at any rate, that
Agreed.
certainly wasn't true. Um, I don't care what people put on a passport. The whole pronoun thing, I think, frankly, can be very silly, but I don't care if people want to state what their pronoun is. And some of this canceling on the part of the liberal class, I think it shows you the weakness of the liberal class, that they harp on issues that are not substantive to most people,
Right.
that create some kind of emotional response, but not, it's not real politics. It's not anything that changes anybody's life. It's and I think a lot of people put a pronoun in their email signature because their boss does. I don't think they really. How many people really care? I don't think it's that many.
I don't care.
Um, I think but I think there was a misreading of what people were ready for. So
Wait,
I
explain
think
that. A
you
misreading of what people were ready for.
the idea. I don't think the trans. There's nothing new about people being trans. I mean, I remember a kid, Christine Jorgensen was like the first trans, famous trans person, but that was like in the 60s. I was a kid. There's nothing new about that. I think the problem for many people was all of a sudden they were supposed to change their understanding. So, for example, non-gendered restrooms. Well, trans people were going to the restroom of their choice for years. Nobody was the wiser. It worked just fine. And then
Mhm.
suddenly the liberal class glom onto this idea, and everybody has to. In New York City, they passed laws in public places. You have to have a gender neutral restroom. You have to say it's gender neutral. I don't think it was necessary. I think it's the kind of thing that annoyed people who don't understand why it's important, or as I just said, why do you need to do this at all? Trans
Yeah.
people go to the bathroom of their choice. Nobody knows. Who cares? But I think this, and you could be canceled if you said anything in opposition to this, this
Yes.
phenomenon that everybody was supposed to go along with. And if you didn't go along with it, then that meant you were a bigot, you were transphobic, you hated people. But there was a lot more nuance to how people felt, and people who may not have seen any, just didn't see a reason for the issue to get as much attention as it did. So I think the people who
Agreed.
really don't like it, who are truly transphobic, I think they're in the minority. But by getting ahead of the public, demanding that everybody move along in this direction, that people weren't ready or didn't understand why they had to make this change in their thinking, I think that is the kind of thing that hurts Democrats, especially when they don't do anything for the people.
So,
When the
okay.
COVID era programs expire and people are kicked off of SNAP, kicked off of Medicaid, no more stimulus, that is the kind of thing that creates apathy. Um, and I still say that's the biggest reason. And Joe Biden trying to run again, and not having a real primary, that's what sunk the Democrats. It was
So
not
why take
trans
that?
issues.
So why take that tack? Meaning, from my point of view, if you deal with issues that relate to the overwhelming majority of the population, especially the working class,
Mhm.
you have expanded your frontiers as opposed
Yeah.
to keeping them in this kind of narrow framing. So why would they choose, let's say, DEI policies to run on, or for that matter, issues of race, as opposed to issues of economics to run on?
Because if you address economic issues, you're going against the wishes of the oligarchs that run your party. The Democratic Party is run by rich people just as much as the Republican Party is. They tell them what they are and aren't going to do. And if you help people, you are making the oligarchs angry. Why wasn't there a raise in the minimum wage? Remember, they talked about the parliamentarian. They would claim they wanted to do something, but the parliamentarian wouldn't let them. Do you remember that? So
Yep.
that's the kind of thing. That's why they don't do anything. Their oligarchs don't want them to. They don't want people to get anything. They're greedy. They want everything for themselves. And if you do just a little bit for the public, they put up with a little bit of it during COVID. And after that, they were like, it's back to business as usual. You are not going to raise the minimum wage. And let's see if Trump has a parliamentarian who tells him what he can and can't do.
Oh,
It's
he
just
would.
a,
Yeah,
it's just a joke. It's an
immediately.
absolute joke and a scam. And that is why Democrats lost. That's why they lost. And but if you talk about that, they're not ready to talk about that. Democrats don't
Mhm.
want to own up to why they lost votes. So they will talk about people being bigoted. Now, DEI for corporate jobs is a scam. It doesn't help Black people. It helps white women more than anybody. Most of the people who are like the DEI directors and so forth are white
You're
men.
right. Yeah,
But the effort against DEI is racist. And there are people, and that's the
agreed.
contradiction. There are
Agreed.
people who are against it. They want Black people to disappear from public life. They don't want racism to be discussed. They don't want any aspect of race to be discussed. And that's why they have targeted DEI, which is a sham and a scam. So that's something we have to be careful about. So it's a tricky thing, not in defending these programs that are a waste, but not ignoring the racism of the people who are targeting them.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Last question before I let you go. Is there going to be a backlash to Trump? I mean, they're effectively gutting Medicaid right now. And as
Mhm.
you pointed out, many of the people that Donald Trump are firing are white. They're like 2 million federal workers that are under pressure as a direct result of Musk's Dodge program and what Donald Trump has been doing. Republicans are going to pass their budget. The budget is going to be helter-skelter in regards to
Mhm.
cutting federal programs while simultaneously giving themselves massive tax cuts. Is the American public going to see that, recoil at that, in which case they a backlash towards it?
I think there's going to be a backlash. He could probably get away with that. The backlash is going to be because of this Musk business, this Doge
Doge.
thing.
Yeah.
That's what's going to do it. People know there isn't massive fraud in Social Security. There aren't dead people getting Social Security or dead people getting a federal paycheck. You've already seen it in some of these town halls that these Republicans, where their people, Trump voters, are telling them they are not going along with this. So I think that's what's going to get Trump into trouble, as some Republicans have already said. They're MAGA people who are on Medicaid. I don't know why you'd be MAGA if you were on Medicaid, but that's a whole other story. There are people like that. Um, Cutting Medicaid impacts hospitals, impacts communities in a variety of ways. So there will be some cuts. That's what Republicans, after all, want to do. But the bigger question to me is how far the Democrats will fall in failing to address any of it.
So true. Margaret Kimberley is senior columnist and editor for Black Agenda Report, author of Presidential, Black America, and Presidents. You can check her out on Freedom Ride blog. You can check her out also on Black Agenda Report. But Margaret, is there anywhere else that people can find you that I may be missing?
Yes, blackagendareport.com. I'm on X platform, Freedom Ride blog. I'm on Blue Sky and Patreon. Thank you so much.
Very cool. Thank you for this. I always appreciate these conversations. You have a fantastic day, son.
You too.
You